All right, what's going on, everybody? Be doing a quick little reaction. Welcome to my channel. This video is supposedly about a blood gang member. All right, so he's a blood gang leader who dressed up in drag to kill one of his victims. I usually don't like to watch this stuff anymore. I'm not even gonna lie to y'all. I used to watch this stuff all the time at one point. I made some changes in my life, so I don't usually watch this type of stuff. Before we get started, I'm just going to say a quick prayer, y'all, so y'all got to understand this is what I do. If you don't like that, you can click off the video. Lord Heavenly Father Jesus, please protect my mind, my ears, and my eyes while watching this. I know sometimes these things can be demonic, but keep me safe and help me and protect me and my viewers from letting any type of negative energy or negative spirits, demonic spirits, into them by watching this stuff. In your name I pray, amen. Let's go ahead and get this thing going, man.
20 years, 120 years, imagine.
They allege that Heron is guilty of racketeering charges for running a drug dealing operation. They also claim he was involved in 3 and 3 attempted and introduced his music videos as evidence.
The music is basically us talking about the life that we come from, not necessarily saying this is what I did. You know, this is a very intelligent.
All right, so right off the back, he looked like he's associated with Bimmy, the guy in the Yankee hat in the back. Anybody that's not from New York probably won't know who the hell Bimmy is. Bimmy is related to Waka Flocka. I think that's his uncle. He's also very heavy in the streets. He used to run with the Supreme Team. Anybody who knows about the Supreme Team in Queens, you know, it was a big organization. And he also is a great producer. Okay, he produced for LL Cool J. He produced for a lot of people. So even though I'm mentioning that aspect, because I know some people might focus on that, he still is an incredible producer, produced a lot of hit records for a lot of people in the industry. He turned his life around. So, you know, he could know him from a music standpoint, and that could be why he started getting some ears. That was one of the things I wanted to say as well. Might have been how he started getting some ears and some attention onto his music. So,
and this is not a man who would commit all these crimes and didn't tell you for you to use it against him.
These acts, we knowingly understand what comes with this. We want the lights and we want the glitter and we want this, but we understand the only thing that's promised is jail or death. Diggs, knowing the individual he is, I think he understood what comes with it. If he was engaged in that, I think he was prepared for the outcome of his activities.
When the track Eulogy dropped, nobody could have predicted the wild accusations that would later come to light against Ronald Heron, better known as Rod Diggs.
Born out of that, I was forced with a decision. Either I'm gonna starve or risk going to.
The story behind this guy is straight out of a crime thriller. Picture this. Rod Diggs allegedly had one of his associates go,
yo, you know who he looked like? And then y'all ever seen ATL? And you remember the dude that was telling him, nah, I'm getting money. And then he was running out the swimming pool mad because his money was wet. He played Big Boy's cousin. He look a little bit like him, bro.
Undercover in the most extreme way. Wig, lipstick, makeup, the whole 9 yards, just to get close to a target he wanted. And get this, the associate even claimed that Rod Diggs himself had used this disguise method before to carry out hits. But honestly, that's just scratching the surface of Rod Diggs' criminal history. The stuff he got into was so hardcore that he ended up with not 1, not 2, but 3 life sentences plus an extra 105 years tacked on for good measure.
Rod Diggs got 3 life sentences. You heard about this?
I actually seen it on, I think it was on your website yesterday, and I was like, and I feel bad.
And where is he serving this mind-boggling sentence? In none other than the infamous ADX Florence, the supermax prison often dubbed the Alcatraz of the Rockies. Now, if you're not familiar, this place is notorious for housing the worst of the worst. Terrorists, cartel leaders, gang bosses, and all sorts of high-profile criminals. It's a place where even hardened criminals have a tough time. A facility where they say death might be easier than living out your days there.
In an exclusive interview, a former warden and a former inmate tell us death is easier than life at the federal supermax.
It is as isolated as the prisoners who call it home. The prison, called ADX Florence, is a tomb for the living.
To me, it's life after death.
So what exactly did Rod Diggs do to land himself in such a hellhole? Let's dive in deeper.
I think Rod Diggs, knowing the individual he is, I think he understood what comes with it. If he was engaged in that, I think he was prepared for the outcome of his activities.
Ronald Herron, better known as Rod Diggs, was born in 1982 and grew up in Gowanus projects of Brooklyn, New York, a place that's seen a lot of change due to gentrification, but back then it was a rough area to navigate. Surrounded by crime and violence, Rod Diggs found himself caught up in the streets early on, getting involved with criminal activities and eventually joining the Bloods. His adolescence was a revolving door of correctional facilities, setting the stage for the reputation he would go on to build.
I was brought up toting slammers, like, so Bill had to be extra tight. You feel me? Like,
in September 1998, things took a dark turn when a shooting in Wyckoff Gardens, a nearby project, left an innocent bystander. Just 2 years later, on October 7th, 2000, Rod Diggs himself was shot in the leg during a dispute over a drug debt. But Rod Diggs wasn't the type to let something like that slide. While recovering at Kings County Hospital, he orchestrated a retaliation hit on his shooter, carried out by his cousins. This act only cemented his reputation for violence. He even bragged about it in a song with Uncle Murda on the GZ beat for Slow Down, spitting lines like, "I don't respect the shooter cause he shot me in the legs, and 2 days later the little homie was dead. See, if he was smart, he would have shot me in the head, cause I could get you shot from a hospital bed."
See, if he was smart, he would have shot me in the head, cause I could get you shot from a hospital bed.
But that was just the beginning. In 2001, Rod Diggs found
I never will understand why rappers telling themselves like that. If you in the streets, be quiet, bro. For real, be quiet.
himself facing a charge for a Frederick Brooks, an alleged rival dealer. On June 16, 2001, Brooks was gunned down in the lobby of 198 Bond Street, shot multiple times in the face, neck, back, and head. The crime scene was brutal, leaving Brooks to bleed out on the floor. Rod Diggs, along with members of his Bloods crew, took steps to dispose of the firearm used in but it wasn't long before the authorities caught up with him. By July 2001, he was arrested and put on trial in New York State Criminal Court. The prosecution claimed to have two key eyewitnesses, let's call them Witness A and Witness B. Both had given recorded statements to the Assistant District Attorney, identifying Rod Diggs as the shooter who took Brooks' life. They even picked him out of a police lineup. But when it came time to testify, things took a shocking turn. Both witnesses recanted their statements, claiming they'd been threatened by Rod Diggs and his associates. Another witness, Witness C, testified that he saw Rod Diggs arguing with Brooks before following them into the lobby. There, he witnessed Rod Diggs push Brooks against the mailboxes, pull out a silver gun, and shoot him. Despite this, Witness C knew that testifying against Rod Diggs was a death sentence, so he lied about his role in the murder. Yet another witness, Witness D, also saw the murder but refused to identify Rod Diggs on the stand out of fear for his life. The level of influence Rod Diggs wielded in his community was undeniable, and it paid off. He walked away from the case acquitted, later bragging about beating the body.
He had beaten. He had beaten a murder case. Yeah, he had beaten a murder case. He had beaten a murder case and he was out.
But this wasn't the end of his run-ins with the law. Throughout the early 2000s, Rod Diggs continued to build up his blood set known as the Murderous Mad Dogs, using 423 Baltic Street in Brooklyn as his base of operations. His crew was involved in everything from drug dealing to extortion, robbery, and even murder. Rod Diggs was briefly locked up for drug.
I ain't gonna lie, that stuff be giving me a headache, bro. You know, and it hurts my heart because this is my city. I'm originally from New York, so this really hurts my heart when I see stuff like this, man. And just the mass destruction of my people. You know what I'm saying? It sucks, man. If they could just put that time and energy into something else.
But managed to maintain control of his enterprise from behind bars. When he was released in July of 2007, he didn't slow down. In fact, he had a new vision for expanding his empire. However, the streets don't stay quiet for long. In 2007, a local drug dealer referred to in court documents as John Doe was selling crack in the same projects where Rod Diggs operated. Not one to tolerate competition, Rod Diggs ordered 2 of his men to rob John Doe. They caught him in a building lobby, and despite an attempt by a friend of John Doe to intervene, one of Rod Diggs' guys pulled a pistol while the other emptied John Doe's pockets, taking between $600 to $700 in cash. After the robbery, Rod Diggs confronted John Doe on the 12th floor, warning him to stop selling drugs in his territory. John Doe took a break for a few months but eventually came back, this time asking Rod Diggs for permission to sell. Rod granted it, but only under the condition that John Doe would buy his product directly from him. John Doe eventually became a key player in Rod Diggs' operation, supervising deliveries from suppliers and dispersing the drugs to street dealers. In early May 2008, things started heating up for Rod Diggs when a guy named Richard Russo made some not-so-nice comments about him. Russo was hanging out in the lobby of 423 Baltic Street with some members of Ra's crew who were busy selling drugs. Russo, feeling bold, started questioning Ra's authority in Gowanus and even went as far as to threaten his life. Well, that turned out to be a big mistake. Just a few days later, on May 9th, 2008, Rod Diggs decided to confront Russo in the same lobby. He walked up to him, told him to get in the elevator with another member of his crew, and once inside, he shot and K-worded Russo right there. To cover his tracks, Ra handed out some cash to one of his guys, making sure they kept their mouths shut and disposed of the firearm used in the murder. But Russo wasn't the only one on Ra's hit list. There was another guy named Kendall Robinson, also known as Smurf, who had been involved in a series of violent incidents around the block where Ra was running his business. These incidents were messing with Ra's money, and he wasn't about to let that slide. So he and one of his goons started hunting Robinson. On September 13th, 2008, one of Ra's hitters found Robinson and shot him in front of 185 Nevin Street with a .40 caliber gun. Robinson survived, but it was clear that Ra was sending a message. Even though Ra wasn't there for the shooting, other members of his crew were, making sure the job was done. Just to give you an idea of the level of menace these guys were dealing with, Kendall Robinson, at only 21 years old, would later be sentenced to life without parole in 2013 for executing a 16-year-old girl. This girl, Altia Conyers, had pressed assault charges against one of Robinson's homies, and she refused to drop them even after the guy was locked up. In retaliation, Robinson shot her 3 times as she was trying to escape, then stood over her as she begged for her life and put 3 more bullets into her head and face. Fast forward to November.
Bro. They ruthless, bro. That's some ruthless, that's some real movie-like ruthless stuff right there, bro. And I hate to say it and bring it back to this, but this is why I say this is spiritual warfare we dealing with, bro. Because that's some demonic stuff right there, bro. That's the epitome of what these young people be talking about when they on demon time. That's it right there. That's not cool, bro. Especially for a female. Regardless of the... Bro, even if it was a male, but especially for a female, son. That's dirty. That's real dirty. Damn.
November 2008, and Ra's crew got into another beef, this time with a group selling drugs in the Wyckoff Gardens projects. One of Ra's people was selling crack there when a guy named Victor Zapata told her she couldn't sell there anymore. Ra's partner, George Meja, decided to confront Zapata, but things didn't go as planned. On November 9th, 2008, Meja was shot about 5 times during the confrontation. Rod and his crew were furious and even recorded a meeting while Meja was recovering in the hospital, where they planned their next move. The video titled Project Music was posted on YouTube as an extended part of a music video, but it's since been deleted. On December 23, 2008, one of Ra's hitters was arrested with a loaded .22 caliber gun and body armor while trying to run from the police. Rod managed to avoid...
He said body armor? Bruh, this dude had...
getting caught that time, but the heat was definitely on. Then on September 27, 2009, Rod finally caught up with Zapata, the guy who had shot Meja. He found him in the Wyckoff Gardens courtyard, walked him down, and shot him multiple times, K-wording him. Just a few days later, on October 1st,
And these dudes was walking people down. That's the crazy part. They was walking dudes down. Yeah. That's wild, bro. That's wild.
2009, Raw and one of his homies were arrested in a BMW that had been double parked on a crowded street. The cops found a loaded 9mm gun with 10 rounds of ammunition in the car, and it looked like the gun had been discharged recently. Around the same time, but not revealed until later during Raw's court case in 2014, there was a story that Raw Diggs had been kicked out of one of Jim Jones' studio sessions in New York. According to testimony from Raw's driver, Jim Jones was not too happy about Raw bringing that Bloods-ish into his session and told him to take it outside. Raw didn't take kindly to that, and after leaving the studio and breaking the glass door on his way out, he and his goons tracked down Jim Jones later that night. They found him at a strip club in Mount Vernon called Sue's Rendezvous. When Raw walked into the club, the DJ announced his arrival and Jim Jones looked like he'd seen a ghost, quickly making his exit. Raw later spoke about the incident in an interview, basically letting everyone know that yeah, things were cool now, but he did pull up on them that night. One of the most ridiculous arrests came when Raw got arrested.
Hold up. See, now, listen, if that's true, this is why people always have a problem with Jim Jones and always say that he's not a real gangster, he's not a real blood, because first of all, Jim is known for having bloods in his studios, bloods in his videos. So if that was really what was said, again, that could be all speculative, but yeah, that don't look good for you, Jim. Come on now.
For something as minor as littering. He dropped a gum wrapper on the ground and a cop walked up to cite him for it. But then the cop noticed that Raw was wearing body armor. The cop later said, "I've stopped hundreds of people in my career and he's the first person I've seen wearing body armor." Raw got subpoenaed for the military-style body armor he was wearing, and the press tried to spin it as the thing that took down his whole criminal enterprise. But that wasn't really the case. The government had been building a case against him for a long time, and things were about to come crashing down. On October 5th, 2010, the NYPD and US Marshals teamed up to finally catch Raw Diggs. They had been keeping an eye on him, and when they saw him go into Club Amnesia in Manhattan with two of his associates, they knew it was time to move. As soon as Raw and his homies stepped out of the car, they were arrested on the spot. The driver tried to make a run for it, speeding off in the car, but the NYPD caught up with him within minutes. The crazy part about all this is that while Raw was running his criminal enterprise, he was also trying to build a rap career. He was featured on Waka Flocka's debut album, Flockavelli, on the track Live by the Gun, alongside Uncle Murda and the Murder Team. In the song, Raw rapped some pretty incriminating lines that would later come back to haunt him. Everything he said in his verses turned out to be true. He rapped about how 2 days after he was shot, his shooter got killed, which actually happened.
Shot me 5 times, 2 days later the nigga died. Shooting at the father's committed.
He mentioned MMD, the set of bloods he repped, which he would later be charged for. He even bragged about how his homies for him and how he had multiple people himself, like in the cases of Victor Zapata and Frederick Brooks.
Act like you don't know me. Put in my own work, but niggas a kill.
They even shot the music video for the song in the Go Honest projects, right in the heart of where all this stuff was going down. In another track, a remix of Slow Down, Raw rapped about how if you want to smoke a man on the Ave, then go and beat the body with an 18B. He was referring to the murder of Frederick Brooks, which they would later nail him for, along with a slew of other charges.
Go on the Ave, to go and beat the body with an 18B. If you ain't never beat a body, then you ain't like me.
Raw Diggs, known for always representing Van God in his music and brand, had a complex and tumultuous life that culminated in a series of events that sealed his fate. Just a few months before his final arrest, and only a month after his mother passed away, Raw Diggs released what would become his most popular solo track, Eulogy. This song stands out not just for its haunting beat, but for the eerie way its lyrics seem to foreshadow the grim outcomes that awaited him. In the track, he spits raw bars that cut deep. Now, while they talk about fiction, I'ma spit real rap irrefutable. Try to dispute my facts, man, I'm sick. Only 14 years, but that's the last time I let a man see tears.
Now while they talk about fiction, I'ma spit real rap. Irrefutable, try to dis. I'm sick, only 14 years, but that's the last time I let see tears.
These lines reference a tragic incident from 1994 that left a lasting impact on Diggs. Back then, he was just a kid playing a game of cops and robbers with his friends, split into 2 teams armed with fake guns. But what started as innocent fun ended in a nightmare when Nicholas Hayward, a 13-year-old friend of Raw Diggs, was shot and K-worded by a police officer who mistook the toy gun for a real 9mm. The story was even covered by the New York Times, a stark reminder of how quickly things can turn deadly. Fast forward to February 13, 2012, when Rod Diggs' life took another drastic turn. He was officially indicted, slapped with 23 counts that included racketeering, 3 murders, murder conspiracy, attempted murder, robbery, illegal possession and use of firearms, and narcotics. With the weight of these charges, he was staring down the possibility of the death penalty.
They allege that Heron is guilty of racketeering charges for running a drug dealing operation in the Gowanus housing development where he grew up. They also claim he was involved in 3 murders and 3 attempted.
And to make matters worse, just a month later, while awaiting trial in March 2012, Diggs was caught with a cell phone in his solitary confinement cell, only adding to his growing list of troubles. This wasn't the first time Diggs had been in hot water. If you remember from earlier, he had managed to beat a murder charge in the early 2000s thanks to witness intimidation. The same people who had initially pointed the finger at him decided to stay silent and refused to testify in the Frederick Brooks case, which he was charged for again later on. At this point, the media was focusing heavily on his lyrics, trying to paint a picture of a rapper whose art was fueling his criminal activities.
The music is basically us talking about the life that we come from, not necessarily saying this is what I did. You know, this is a very intelligent man, and this is not a man who would commit all these crimes and didn't tell you for you to use it against him.
But while the lyrics were damning, they were just the tip of the iceberg. What really did him in was the sheer number of people who turned against him, people who were once close to him but ended up testifying in court, spilling all the details. In Eulogy, Diggs also rapped, "I'm a wave the heat, I solemnly swear before I let them give me 120 years, 120 years, imagine that there."
Swear before I let him give me 120 years, 120 years, imagine that.
The irony of those words would hit hard later on. On June 26, 2014, after being convicted of racketeering and 3 murders, Diggs avoided the death penalty, which had been taken off the table earlier. However, he wasn't spared from a life behind bars. Instead, he was handed 3 life sentences plus an additional 105 years. His response to the judge was defiant. "You can sentence me to 10 life sentences, I'm only going to die one time, and God have mercy on us all." The judge, however, was not moved. Recognizing Diggs' articulate nature, he noted how even now, Diggs seemed oblivious to the misery he had caused. To drive the point home, the judge granted his wish and added 10 more life sentences, bringing Diggs' total to 12 life terms plus 105 years. Rod Diggs was sent to ADX Florence.
12 life sentences, but he has a point. He has a point. You only live one life, so telling him that is more of a mental thing. And that's why he said what he said to the judge, because he's basically letting the judge know that you can't break my mental. You know what I'm saying? Bro was a menace. He wasn't just a menace like physically, he's even a menace mentally, because to even have that rebuttal, to say that back, lets you know where his head was at, like where his mind was on. He was not about to let nobody break him at all, even in that moment.
Infamous supermax prison in Colorado, often referred to as the Alcatraz of the Rockies. This place is reserved for the worst of the worst, housing notorious criminals like El Chapo, the Boston Marathon bomber, James Marcello of the Chicago outfit, Larry Hoover, founder of the Gangster Disciples, Mahmoud Abu Halima, one of the men behind the '93 World Trade Center bombing, and founders of the Aryan Brotherhood. ADX Florence is where mass murderers and terrorists are confined under brutal conditions designed to prevent any chance of escape or violence.
Exclusive interview, a former warden and a former inmate tell us death is easier than life at the federal supermax.
It's as isolated as the prisoners who call it home. The prison, called ADX Florence, is a tomb for the living.
To me, it's life after death.
Life at ADX is nothing short of a nightmare. Inmates are kept in solitary confinement for 23 hours a day in small cells measuring about 7 by 12 feet.
Even if the behaviors are good, though, it's pretty much a 23-hour a day in the cell, 1 hour outside. And even outside, it's not a walk in the park. It's a caged environment.
The cells are stark, with only a bed, a desk, and a stool, all made of poured concrete. A tiny 4-inch wide window allows in a sliver of light, but no view of the outside world, so prisoners have no sense of their exact location within the complex. The furniture is unmovable, and the cell includes a combination sink and toilet. There's a small time shower, and the rooms are soundproof, ensuring that inmates cannot communicate with one another.
Prisoner lives in a cell
Oh, see, I knew about this prison. I didn't know that it was soundproof, so they can't communicate. Oh, they're trying to punish your mind, bro. forget that. They not just trying to punish the physical, they punishing the mental. Because that right there, that's true isolation.
Size of a bathroom. It has a shower, a toilet, a concrete slab covered with a thin mattress. In the rare time outside, prisoners are kept in cages.
Movement is heavily restricted, with any activity outside the cell requiring the escort of multiple guards. Even the exercise yard, which is enclosed by high walls with only a view of the sky, is designed to prevent any glimpse of the surrounding area. Contact with the outside world is minimal, with non-contact visits conducted through thick glass partitions and very limited access to monitored phones. Despite the overwhelming evidence against him, Rod Diggs still has his supporters. Some argue that he didn't commit many of the crimes he's been accused of, although skepticism remains high.
By the way, free Rod Diggs.
Free Rod Diggs, man. Yeah.
I feel like hopefully he gonna get around this because a lot of that they trying to say he didn't do.
Over the years, Diggs has attempted to appeal his sentence multiple times, claiming that his First Amendment rights were violated, but every appeal has been denied.
See, that's my problem with my community, the black community, the street mentality especially. People from the streets always do that, bro. Don't defend that, man. Y'all know he was a terrorist. Y'all know he was out here in these streets doing what he was doing, bro. He gotta face the consequences. It is what it is, bro. It is what it is. And that be the messed up part, man, is that so many people will defend it and be like, oh man, he really a good dude. He really this, he really that. If he'd have put that he had a strong mentality. If he'd have put that towards something positive, he wouldn't be in the predicament he was in. He should have put that into the music. But the problem was his music was rapping about his life. So because his life was street, it was hood. So that's what he was rapping about. But if he could have switched that, he could have shifted that. He could have blew up. He could have rapped to the ladies and appealed to the ladies instead of doing that. You know what I'm saying? And then he would have never even been in the situation he was in. But that's the end of the video, man. Y'all get down in the comment section. Tell me what y'all think. Like, comment, and subscribe like I always say, man. Please share the content too. And tell me what y'all think about this situation, man. This is crazy, man. I know a lot of people probably from back from my hometown going to see it and have something to say. But yeah, man, you know, prayers go out to all the victims. You know what I'm saying? All the people that lost their lives, you know, and all that good stuff, man. I'm out. Peace.